I don't know what it's going to take to wake these people up. Look, it's even like the bust of El Chapo Jr. and that other, the other 76-year-old cartel leader.
El Mayo.
Yeah, that got arrested. I don't even know how much that's going to wake people up.
I'm Flindt Andersen, founder of PAIN, Parents and Addicts in Need. I've been in recovery since 2001, and there isn't much I don't know about recovery. And my mission is to constantly tell the truth about addiction, to make the realities of addiction, recovery, and drug culture known, and to drive awareness and advocate change that ultimately saves lives.
And I'm Jason LaChance, a certified recovery coach with a passion for speaking with others and sharing their knowledge to help others seek recovery and maintain long-term sobriety. And this is the Don't Hide the Scars podcast, presented by PAIN, Parents and Addicts in Need. How much fentanyl is coming over the border? Well, I'm going to tell you, well, not just me, but of course the founder of PAIN, Flindt Andersen, and myself, Jason LaChance, are going to tell you it's a lot more than you think. And it's alarming, Flindt.
It's extremely alarming. Why don't you start out by telling them how much was just seized? What was this in the last 5 months?
Last 5 months, 447 million potentially lethal doses of fentanyl were seized at the U.S. border alone. 442 million in the last 5 months.
Now, weren't we talking and thinking that might be, if there's a 40-foot truck trailer, container, right? I would imagine that number would maybe fill half of that trailer.
If that, well, you got to figure what is the lethal dose amount? It's 2 milligrams.
2 milligrams. That's the lethal dose.
Okay, that's a teeny pill. If people haven't seen, we did off our last podcast, and we posted up a reel talking about that, and we showed an individual who was holding fentanyl pills in his hand. They're tiny. So
Yeah.
442 million. That's it's like a 20th of a penny.
Right, but again, the fentanyl is still put in a pill press,
Right.
So it's put in a larger fake pill,
Right.
is what it is. But regardless, whether it's a smaller pill or a larger pill, I mean, 442 million is, it sounds like a lot, and it is. Let's call it what it is. 442 million of anything is a lot. But you really have to look at this. You have to look at the fact that if they seized 442 million pills, can you imagine how many got through?
Yes.
I mean, we are inundated with these pills. I mean, inundated. This country, you can go anywhere, anytime, buy as many as you want. There is no shortage of these things whatsoever in all 50 states.
Mm-hmm.
So 442 million pills. And by the way, thank God they stopped that amount. Because we don't know how many lives were saved because of it.
Yeah.
But in the grand scheme of things, I mean, and that's in a 5-month period. That's not one stoppage.
Yeah.
That's not one, hey, pull your truck over, okay, or pull your car over, because you could probably get 442 million pounds of the pills in the back of it in the trunk of a car.
Yeah. Yeah, or hiding it. I mean, they've had, the cartels had so many different techniques over the year, hiding it in the rails of big rigs where, normally it might be they'll line up a shipping like forklift or something to offload stuff in, and they'll fill those rails or tires. And then they've had all kinds of different insane techniques. And I know they're trying to do greater technology to be able to examine these things. But I mean, when you have that much traffic coming over the border north and south, it's insane to be able to stop everything. And
well, again, it goes back to Bill Bodner, our conversation with Bill, who was the special agent in charge for DEA for the Western United States, including Hawaii and Guam and Saipan and those places. It's you just can't imagine the amount. I mean, it's hard it's for those of us that work in this, it's hard for us to imagine that amount. For the normal citizens out there, I mean, it's right over their head. To be honest with you, nobody can comprehend the fact that this is in the billions with a B and an S at the end. And like we said in our last podcast, this is a war that we're in, and these are definitely we need wartime tactics to stop this.
Yeah. Well, and you're right. I mean, just in that 5-month period that has been able to be measured and shared statistically, I mean, it has to be in the billions that have made it across. And if these are lethal doses, I mean, I don't get how some still don't see it as a war. I mean, we don't have another term for it. I mean, when you are sending something that is going to kill and has that potential to kill, how else do you classify it other than a weapon?
Right.
And I don't understand why that isn't being done. Why the individual that's been in charge of our border for the last 4 years hasn't looked at it this way, hasn't even been to look at the border for that matter. But that you have to take a look at that and realize that this is poisoning primarily our younger people, but the addicts that survived long enough to maybe get into their 40s and then get this because the heroin's gone and all these other things that maybe if they are hooked on opioids, be it prescription or not, it's gone. These are like your options, and it's a cheap option.
Right.
I mean, I've heard as little as maybe anywhere from $3 to $5 per pill.
Yeah, that's what it is.
I mean, I don't know about you, Flindt, but like when I was in my alcoholism, hey, dollar beer night was like 2 ounces, okay? There was nothing, and I joke because I can, because you and I are alive to tell our stories and help others. But yeah, I couldn't imagine it ever being that cheap.
No. Well, look, and I want to go back to one little thing here, where when you're talking about the traffic that goes in across the border, both in and out of Mexico on a daily basis. I remember Bill saying, that there is over 1 million cars a day that are going back and forth because people work in Mexico from the United States and vice versa. People from Mexico work in the United States and they've got their work visas to, in order to do that. So if you've got 1 million vehicles a day going across that border with only X amount of border guards and border patrol, and the border stations, I mean, how that you can't check every car. But and again, Jason, that is only one method that they're getting this stuff across. They're just not using vehicles to get this stuff across.
Yep.
They're using whatever tactics, drones, airplanes. These guys would probably dig tunnels, fill them with water, and use a submarine if they could. I mean, these people aren't stupid. They're going to get it in somehow.
Yeah. Well, we saw that real rise of that probably the 60s, 70s, 80s, especially with cocaine. I mean, the boat runners and, they were buying the most fancy big, power boats to get these things across. That it was tough to catch something on the water doing 100 miles per hour.
Sure. Well, and there is a story. This is a true story about a cartel. They did get a submarine.
Oh, that's right.
They did get a submarine, and they were basically driving that thing right up to our beaches. I mean, these guys will go to any length to get their drug into this country. I mean, I've even heard where they will, there's a lot of fishing that goes on in Mexico, and that fish gets shipped in. They'll put it inside, fish that are fresh but dead. You know, they'll cut them open and put the drugs in. I mean, it's amazing what these guys can come up with.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, they even used airdrop tactics.
Sure, absolutely they did. Absolutely they do.
You know, it's
it's frustrating. It's frustrating.
It is. It really is. And, you know, we can only hope that the more greater awareness that making it clear to people, this number really is bigger than you think. It is flooded out there. If you or a loved one is struggling with addiction, please call PAIN, Parents and Addicts in Need, at 559-579-1551, or visit us online at painnonprofit.org. Follow us on social media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Pain Nonprofit. And please subscribe to the Don't Hide the Scars podcast and share with others wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. And if you would like to donate to PAIN, Parents and Addicts in Need, please click the link in the description to make your tax-deductible donation today and help us save more lives gripped by addiction.
I've seen so much nonchalant, lazy attitude towards this. Honest to God, I don't know what it's going to take. I don't know what it's going to take to wake these people up. You know, look, it's even like the bust of El Chapo Jr. and that other, you know, the other 76-year-old cartel leader.
El Mayo.
Yeah, that got arrested. You know, I don't even know how much that's going to wake people up. You know, it's a news cycle. It's gonna pass in 24 hours. People are going to lose interest in it. Now there'll be a few blurbs here on, you know, when his trial is and when that's coming up. And okay, the guy gets life, and then the rest of us just kind of live our lives, you know. So to the point is, I just don't know what is going to wake up anybody here, short of some congressman, senator, loved one dies from an overdose.
Yeah.
Short of that, I mean, look, we're now in July. We've talked about this before. I have seen, and I'm sure you haven't seen it either. We don't hear much on the news anymore about the fentanyl issue. It's not in major discussions for the presidential race here. Mm-hmm. You may get it mentioned once, twice at the Republican National Convention. You probably won't hear it at all at the Democratic Convention. But where is it? See, I don't see how anymore, besides people like us and some other folks out there that are even talking about this much. It's still the number one killer in our country. It's wiping people out. And I don't understand. I'm going to keep beating that into the airwaves here. I don't understand why this is not one of our top priorities.
Yeah. I would think that people would be more enraged. I really do, especially, you know, when we talk about, you know, there's such a spectrum of things that politically people care about, you know, and a lot of it's driven by emotions, feelings, and things like that. Well, let's be emotional and pragmatic at the same time here. Nothing should make you more angry. Every community, it doesn't matter your ethnicity, your gender identity, your sexual orientation, your socioeconomic status. This is everybody. It's everybody. This to me, and it's not just because you and I are in it, but like sitting and looking and trying to look at what is going on in our world. This should really be like the number one issue for everyone. Because we can't worry about all these other things that people are effing dead.
Right. Well, look, here's the other piece to it, you know, and I'm going to blame social media a little bit. And actually, I'm not going to blame social media. I'm going to blame the people that are on social media. I mean, and you even know a few of them. But if I have to see one more person be an expert on everything, I mean, I'm an expert on movies. I'm an expert on books. I'm an expert on sports. I'm an expert on this and that and the other thing, and 25 different things somebody's an expert on. It's like, look, be an expert on one. Make it a priority. Everybody's not an expert on the fentanyl problem. Everybody's not an expert on drug addiction, and I get that. But everybody's trying to almost out there trying to tell us what's not important. I don't give two shits, okay, that the Mets beat the Yankees the other day. I mean, I really don't. I'm a baseball fan, but I don't need to see it over and over and over again.
Sure.
Okay. I don't really give a damn, okay, that you had lasagna for dinner.
How did you know that? I literally did.
I mean, it's okay, and it's okay to have fun, and it's okay to do that stuff. But when tackle something that's important, for God's sake, because look, if we were living in a different time, if we were living in an era where we didn't have some of these major problems, then I would be all for that. Yeah, let me see what you're having for dinner. Okay, let me see all the little videos on the little kids running around. Whatever it is. But I think social media has gotten to a point to where you're paying attention to it, but you're not.
Yeah.
Because you're scrolling through stuff, and our attention span is 5 seconds. And if somebody's talking too long, you scroll down. It's so again, for people like us and others that are trying to get messages out, whether it's addiction, whether it's child trafficking or human trafficking, or excuse me, or a cancer or some other issue that we're dealing with, it's tough for us to get our message out.
Yeah.
Right. And then in addiction, if you or a family member, or you don't know anybody that's struggling with it, of course you're going to scroll right past us.
Yeah. Yeah.
But for the most part, when in fact, with addiction and the fentanyl crisis, nobody should be scrolling past us.
Yeah. Because
for the 40-year-old parents that are sitting at home today, and that maybe will listen to this at some point, your children are the ones that are at risk. Your children are at risk. And again, to make it clear, I'm not saying your kids are going to wind up to be drug addicts. That's not what I'm saying. But because fentanyl is so powerful, because it's so deadly, and because it's being put in damn near everything.
And cheap
to boot, your kids could potentially be the next victim here.
Yes.
So it goes back to, where are the schools? Where's the media? Why isn't somebody covering this at least once a day somewhere? I'm not saying that it has to be just plastered on the news. I know there's people that say it should be. All right. But again, you can only plaster people with so much before they really shut down.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it has to be thrown in the context, okay, of do I think we need to make this an everyday message? Yeah, I do. All right. But let's do it in a way that people actually listen to it.
Yeah. And I want to talk on that here in just a second, but before we jump into a break, I do want to talk about real quick the Home of Hope, Granville Home of Hope. We've got those tickets on sale. People have already been buying them from us and the other organizations involved, the Amazing 9 organizations, but want to tell people a little bit about that before we take a break and come back. And I want to talk more on that social media.
You got it. Yeah. So again, Granville, we just appreciate they're doing this again this year. They didn't do it in 2023, but they're back, and we're thrilled. And it benefits 9 nonprofits here locally. You can buy a ticket for $100 to get a home. You can buy a bundle of tickets for $200, which you get 2 tickets for the home and 1 ticket to possibly win a Lexus for 2 years. It's really a great organization, Granville, and they help out our community tremendously. So give us a call, and maybe you'll win a house out of the deal.
Absolutely. And if you want more details, all the details are in our podcast description there, including our phone number, the website on Home of Hope, and we'll be right back. New Perceptions North, the premier drug and alcohol treatment and recovery center in Central California. A full continuum of medically supervised top quality care with programs for detox and patient residential treatment with dual diagnosis, intensive outpatient treatment, sober living support groups, and more. New Perceptions North provides adult men and women with the highest caliber of professional health care, treating each client with compassion and respect in a safe, comfortable environment to begin the process of recovery to proudly create and sustain a life without addiction. Call 559-978-1507 or visit newperceptionsnorth.com. So Flindt, we were talking about social media and when it comes to, raising awareness, and you bring up such a valid point about, our short attention span and the scrolling through. And people might be surprised, I produced the vast majority of our social media content here, which I love doing. But as far as sitting and watching an abundance of content on social media, you're right. It's kind of, but for me, if it isn't in that recovery kind of space, people doing stuff around mental health, or if it's somebody I know and their kids, okay, you're going to get that, or you got your dog or your cat or something, you might get a like or my attention. But otherwise, I'm scrolling past it. So I really get your point. If it's not in that wheelhouse for people of maybe what they care about or are interested in, it really is hard to get their attention.
Right. Yeah. But I also think that's just part of our society today. People, they don't have long attention spans. I mean, there's a lot to worry about today.
Sure.
There really is. I mean, the cost of everything, gas prices, food prices. I mean, it's not easy today. But again, when we're dealing with such an issue here that has already been so detrimental to our society, and there's no slowdown. I mean, you don't see a slowdown in drugs coming over because these 2 assholes got arrested and flown to Florida, right? I mean, you're not going to see it because there's 2 other idiots, all right, that are or a lot more of them in Mexico that are ready to step in and take those 2 guys' place. I mean, that's just a fact.
Mm-hmm.
So once again, and I'm even getting tired of saying it, right? But here comes that dragon that we're fighting, that we're not slaying in any way, shape, or form, because that dragon has just got so many heads to it.
Yeah,
it's got so many heads to it. And I know on the last episode we did mention, I think, militarily going in there and just bombing the shit out of the place. Okay, which again, I'm sorry. I'm now at the point where it's them or us, and I think it's almost there, Jason. I really do.
Yeah, it's hard to look at it from a diplomatic standpoint. Like, where is the diplomacy with this? There really isn't. And I don't think with the drug trade there ever has been. I mean, it is. I know there's so much stuff that is taken based on real life occurrences and or fictionalized, but it's fictionalized. Maybe the story is a little bit different, or it's based upon, or whatever it is. But the ruthless actions that are taken by these cartels forever are not. The human trafficking is real.
Right.
young girls and boys and women and men, but not to as much of an extent as women and the children. All this stuff, the murder, mutilation, all of it, all of it. And so I just don't see how. I don't I don't know. I guess it's just something you and I, now being in the place I'm at in life and the awareness that I have about my life and the world going on, now that it's out there and I know this, it's not like I can ignore it and sleep well at night. I
Right.
can't ignore it.
It's disturbing. Yeah.
It is. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
incredibly disturbing.
Well, look, it's almost like it's almost like watching movies about the mafia. Okay. For years we have glorified the mafia, and I was a part of it. The Godfather. I mean, all the the Joe Pesci movies, and all. I mean, Casino. Those guys. I mean, great movies. I'm not taking away from them, but we glorify that stuff. Even a show like Narcos that was on Netflix. They've got several different shows called Narcos. I mean, I was enthralled by that show. Enthralled by it. Now, my watching that, I think, is comes from a different angle than most people, because I'm more about learning what those guys are doing and how it affects everybody. But do you see my point? We glorified the mafia, we glorified drug dealers, we glorify the whole thing by film. And again, I'm not taking away from filmmakers or anything else, so nobody write me a letter. But but we do that, and so we kind of just dismiss it. I think we just kind of dismiss it, because when you think about the violence, I'm talking about the sheer violence, decapitations, mutilations, bombings. I mean, even when you look what Escobar did to Colombia, back in the 80s, he massacred that country.
Yeah.
Massacred it. Bombings. I mean, blew up federal buildings. And nobody could stop this guy?
Yeah.
Come on. We bring in a couple of our SEALs, okay, and with high-powered rifles, and take his ass out. I mean, and why are those other countries afraid to ask for our help to come in?
Yeah. Yeah, but it makes you wonder.
It does.
It really does. And I wonder if for some people, and I know you and I've talked about kind of, hey, growing up was like, yes, I grew up in a home of addiction, but we weren't destitute. We never went without, any of that stuff. But then it was kind of like, certain situations. Well, that's over there, though.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And I just don't. I guess maybe it just hasn't hit enough people that it's like, no, it's here.
Here.
It's here now. It's all here.
Right.
I'm sorry, when you sit there and you walk through San Francisco, I was there a couple months ago, and you're going through the Tenderloin and everybody's just hunched over. My buddy, who ironically lives over in Berkeley, goes, "What the heck's going on with those people?" I go, "They're all high on fentanyl." Yeah. Huh? I'm like, yeah, that's what it looks like, man.
Right. Right. And how somebody in that area can even wonder what it is boggles my mind.
Yeah. And again, that was very great point. Very weird to me. I was like, don't you venture down here? Well, it's been a while, and this is usually the latest I come, and I'm like, well, if they're a fentanyl addict, they're like that all day.
Well, see, but see, we what I'm going to say now is we've talked about what I'm going to say before. We live in Fresno, Clovis, and San Joaquin Valley, which is very spread out, right? Mm. So we're not in a concentrated areas of big cities. So we don't see that. The general population here in Fresno they're not witnessing that on a daily basis. They're not even witnessing that probably on a yearly basis.
Good point.
Short of going downtown Fresno, by the way, which you're not seeing much of it down there either. Now you may see homeless, right? But you don't see that, the land of the walking dead on our streets too much. So if we're not seeing it, there's no reason for the news to report it, because how many times can a local news station report something from a Fresno news station reporting something from San Francisco or Los Angeles? Because most of this community is just going to shut it off or walk out of the room. True. Because it doesn't affect them, or they think it does not affect us. What they're not seeing, and this is and this, I'm just going to sum it up by saying this. What they're not seeing are the addicts that are suffering in silence. They're not seeing the families that are suffering in silence because of a loved one's addiction, because it's not made public. Yeah. So when it's not made public, nobody sees it. Therefore, you don't see it. You don't think about it. You don't think about it. You don't care. And now you're not seeing it on the news it's just, it gets to the point where it's just, it's not happening here. It's not affecting us. Yeah. When in reality, I'm going to say it again, the general public is not seeing, because we have an enormous addiction problem in Fresno, Clovis, and this valley. Yes. An enormous one. But the general public isn't seeing it. Yeah. Yeah, it's worse than I think most people think. It is. And it doesn't, there's dents made here and there at times, but it doesn't necessarily seem to be improving at all. No. And it's a shame. Look, I know to me, it's a shame that this isn't covered more, that there's, but I know people in this that I'm sure they're getting tired of people not listening. After a while, how many times can you beat your head against the wall? Yeah. But what's upsetting to me is the fact that even with everything that I said and you've said, and I got to keep repeating this because this is what we do, and I'm going to keep repeating things until we get it across. We're not changing the treatment industry here. We're not getting the right kind of help to these folks that need it. And I think a lot of the addicts out there realize that. So they're not even going to make a phone call anymore. Yeah. Because the phone calls they're making are, first of all, to the wrong damn people. Okay. And they're just not getting the help. And there's reasons for that. We don't have enough beds. We don't have enough, people don't have enough staff to take the phone calls. That was one thing with a place here in Fresno that said, look, we can't even staff our phones. We can't get people hired. They don't want to work, So there's lots of different reasons, right? Why things aren't working. But in my opinion, we still have to change what we've been doing, because what we've been doing isn't working. Yeah. 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 More extreme drug, more extreme addiction requires a more extreme solution. And it's not happening. It's not a, hey, come here, let me hold your hand for 5 minutes type of deal. The solution, that's just, it never has been, never will be. And now it needs to be even more than it's ever been. And right. Well, and you said something on last week's podcast that really stuck with me about our friend Mike Diamond, who, Mike's doing the show Intervention and God, we just love Mike. And what you said was so important. When a person that needs help goes on that show, they're given 3 months of treatment. and possibly longer because of outpatient services. That is making a difference.
Yep.
That's making a difference, because the people that are running that show, and Mike in particular, all right, Mike's in recovery. Mike knows how long it takes.
Mm-hmm.
He knows exactly how long it takes, or at least the start of a certain length of time to get somebody in there to get them going. And it's 90 days to begin with.
No.
But because of our society and insurances and the rest of it, it's just not happening.
Yeah. Well, and it's so, and what I mean by that equal response and solution towards the recovery is very much, it seems to me like insurance treats everything like everyone's just an alcoholic. And hey, as a recovering alcoholic, I'm not demeaning it. I do not miss the DTs and all these things, and I know no other alcoholic in recovery does either. But let's be honest, at the rate of time that it can take to get certain things out of someone's system, let alone try to get their head clear and everything else, I would even think for alcoholism, 28 days isn't enough. But
Not enough.
But it's like you can't treat everything like that's all it is, because it doesn't work that way. Right. I mean, it's gotten so much more extreme. It needs an extremer solution. And to me, that's that disheartening thing of our medical system's already in upheaval as is. And when it comes to insurance, it's really heartbreaking that there's not more that needs to be done, because you wouldn't all of a sudden cut off a cancer patient's chemo and go, nah, we don't think they need any more.
Right.
Well, then no, the tumor's still there. Well, but it's gotten small enough. No, right. BS, come on.
Right. Or let's take it to the other side. All right. If somebody's raising money for cancer research and to help people with cancer, those people are going to keep feeding those organizations. The public's going to keep feeding them, because I keep asking myself, all right, and again, I love what people are doing with it to help cure cancer, but we've been at this for how long? I mean, 50 years, 60 years, 70 years? And everybody's dumping money into cancer research still? Well, somehow that's telling me something's wrong. Because if we can't come up with a cure by now, when we can do so many other amazing things, I'm just saying that I'm going to question that.
Sure.
Right? But nobody's doing that to help to help fix the addiction issue. The only people that seem to help, they'll help for a little bit if their family member is involved in it, or if their family member needs help. Other than that, everybody walks away from it. Why aren't we doing more for research for opiate addiction and for addiction in general? Because if it's classified as a disease, as it is now, then why aren't we treating this like cancer and going balls to the wall in trying to find a solution somewhere? If that's what everybody says it is, if that's what the FDA and whoever else out there, all these geniuses are saying that it's a disease, well, then why aren't we treating this thing like it's cancer or any other medical disease that's out there that we've got, that we raise all this money for?
Yeah. I don't know that I got. That's a mic drop, Flindt. I don't know that I got anything else to add to that.
Well, good, right? Because it makes sense. I mean, at least it does to me.
No, it's very pragmatic and logical.
And again, I just don't get it. I know I say that a lot on our podcast because it's like this. Honest to God, it's not rocket science. It's not. Instead of putting these grants and these monies into another highway sign or for some sort of low-grade education. Because, and again, don't get me wrong, I don't want people sending me, okay? Education is key in this. It's key, but it's how it's done is key. So let's not put our money into things that aren't working. Let's put our money into things that at least could work. And one of those things is research to find out if it's a brain disease, how do we get to some sort of solution with that?
Yeah. Yep.
With that, ladies and gentlemen, I bid you farewell.
And on that note, thank you for listening or watching on YouTube. Please subscribe on whatever platform you're on, be it our YouTube channel at Pain Nonprofit, or you can find us, of course, on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and wherever else you get finer podcasts. Anything else, Mr. Andersen?
That's it. That's it. I'm all talked out for the day. And just thank everybody for listening. I mean, this is, look, we laugh, we joke on here, but we do take this serious. And the things we say on here, we mean, and we're not going to give up until we get some solutions. It's that simple.
If you or a loved one is struggling with addiction, please call PAIN, Parents and Addicts in Need, at 559-579-1551, or visit us online at painnonprofit.org. Follow us on social media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Pain Nonprofit. And please subscribe to the Don't Hide the Scars podcast and share with others wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. And if you would like to donate to PAIN, Parents and Addicts in Need, please click the link in the description to make your tax-deductible donation today and help us save more lives gripped by addiction.